Hey everyone, and welcome back to Dadvice. Today we are going to be talking about something that played on my mind a lot before our baby arrived, and I suppose I didn't get that many answers to, but the topic today is going to be what those first few days are really like. So once baby arrives, those first few days at home where you're on your own. I'm going to talk a little bit about my experience with that, and hopefully there will be some helpful stuff in there that's going to help you out when the time comes for you. So here we go. So for us, the first time on our own actually came the same day. Our baby arrived first thing in the morning, so we spent about just shy of 12 hours in hospital, and everything all went smoothly, and so they said, look, if you guys want to go home, you can go home. So we did. We didn't make that decision lightly. It wasn't something we planned on doing, but it just happened with the timings and the way everything went. A lot of people talk about that feeling of you get home, you get through the front door, you sit down and you just go, what do we do now? In my experience, honestly, and I'm always going to be honest about what my own experience was, we didn't really get that, I think, because of a few factors. We've got pets, and you know, they needed feeding and stuff. They had been looked after throughout the day. We didn't just abandon them, but they were home and needed sorting out. I needed a little bit of attention as well. We hadn't eaten anything, so it sort of made sense to sort of rustle something up. My experience was this: it was very much kind of one foot in front of the other. We didn't really have the experience of sitting down and going, oh my god, what do we do now? What do we do next? I can't believe I'm in charge of a baby. That feeling never really landed, I think just because we had stuff to do. Both sets of grandparents lived fairly close by. Because we'd been in and out of hospital fairly quickly, they hadn't come and seen us there, so they wanted to come over and say hi and meet their granddaughter and stuff. So you know, they arrived, I think, probably half an hour after we got home. I don't know, before we knew it, it was sort of time to go to bed, and that was kind of it. Didn't really get that kind of daunted feeling. My advice for anyone who is perhaps concerned that they might feel that sort of sense of dauntedness, firstly, don't be, because you might find, like me, it never really landed, just because one thing comes after the other. But if that feeling does come, trust me, there will be plenty of stuff to do. You know, you guys are going to need to eat. Baby's going to need to eat, nappies need to be changed. So there's plenty of stuff to kind of just get on with. And I think that is the best way, is just go head first into it. And I mentioned there that we had visitors pretty much straight away as we arrived home. That's something that is a huge part of the first few days. Managing visitors and how you do that is going to be a huge part of how you get on in terms of your sort of emotional well-being. And obviously this is going to vary from person to person, but too little support from those around you and you're potentially going to feel a bit overwhelmed and like you're on your own. Equally, too many people coming, it can be really suffocating. Well worth having the conversation, firstly with your partner beforehand, establish what each other's expectations are. But the best piece of advice that we got on this topic was to speak to the grandparents beforehand. Oh my goodness, that paid off. It was really, really handy to just have a sort of expectation setting conversation a few weeks ahead of time. It put my mind at ease to know that there wasn't a huge amount of expectation on me. It was nice to hear them say the words, look, you know, we appreciate you guys might need some space and so on. Further to that, I would certainly instigate a policy of, if you're coming over, you might get kicked out 10 minutes later. So anybody who is going to come and visit you needs to come with the knowledge that that's something that you might have to do. Fortunately for us, we weren't in that situation. We didn't have to do that. We had a few chaotic visits, don't get me wrong, but not to the point that we were kind of like, oh my God, you guys are just going to have to go. It didn't happen. It stresses you out, the idea of having visitors over and everything's got to be perfect and you've got to be perfect and the baby's got to be perfect. It doesn't. Tell people in advance everything's going to be crazy, so maybe you get to stay for an hour, maybe you get kicked out after 10 minutes. People will do anything to come and meet a new baby. So they will sign up to whatever terms and conditions you put in front of them. They will go for it. So don't be shy, call it on your terms. It's one of the very few times in life where you will get to do it, so take advantage. And on the topic of taking advantage, if any of those visitors want to bring food with them for you, let them do that. We were really lucky. We've got friends that are nearby as well, who are super kind in terms of prepping meals. We also have here in the UK, I'm sure there's equivalents around the world, a company called Cook, and they basically provide something that's somewhere between a sort of frozen ready meal and a home cooked meal, and it's sort of somewhere in between the two. So it's a sort of healthy kind of meal that you freeze, you can cook it from frozen. So I would recommend stocking up on that kind of thing. Get a load of them, bang them in the fridge, get them early, get them earlier than you think that you need to get them so that they're there and ready. Bear in mind you won't necessarily be sleeping very well. You're probably going to be sort of emotionally a little bit all over the place. You're going to be tired. To be able to sit and eat a hot meal in the evening, it can make all the difference in terms of the sort of morale side of things. And the last thing to really expect in the first few days is that sort of new parent paranoia. I think it probably comes to absolutely everybody. Again, in my own experience, it was a bit of a weird one because we were the first 3, maybe 4 days. I really didn't feel like I was succumbing to that. I really felt like everything was going very smoothly. And just as I was getting to the point where I felt like, I think, I've kind of adapted to this pretty well, it hit me. There was just this very small thing. It turned out to be nothing at all, and it freaked me out. Because here's the thing, as a new parent, you don't know at the time if it's a really tiny thing or if it's something that you should actually be worried about, and you're a really awful parent if you don't report it to someone or get it checked out. So I think the paranoia probably gets everybody at some point. I know it certainly got me. The best advice for getting through it: talk to your other half about it. If you've got grandparents around that have raised kids before, ask them about it. If you've got friends that have raised kids, run it past them. It can be a really big help talking to people who've got a bit more experience than you. They'll be able to sort of set your mind at ease a little bit, or at least point you in the right direction of where you can go and get help with whatever it might be that's bothering you. So I also wanted to do just a little bit of a sort of mental health check, and just kind of points to think about, and it might help you to be kind of prepared for these in advance. And one of those things that I think is probably quite common in this sort of phase of the process is feeling like a little bit of a spare part. This is probably particularly true if your partner is breastfeeding, because in terms of actually really kind of contributing directly to sort of baby stuff, there's not an awful lot really that you can do. But here are some things that you can do that are going to make a huge difference, probably a bigger difference than you necessarily realize at the time. Things like looking after the house generally, doing the dishes, doing the laundry, managing visitors, being able to be strong enough to sort of say, okay, visiting time is over now, I'm kicking you out. That is the kind of stuff that your other half, particularly if they're tired, they're run down, they're trying to feed, that's the kind of thing where you can stand up and make a huge difference. They will really thank you for it. And the other thing to watch out for in terms of kind of the mental health side of things is that feeling of being overwhelmed. As I say, I think that sort of that paranoia, that feeling gets to everybody at some point. So a couple of things to do if that is something that affects you. The biggest thing that I can say is to read up in advance. I don't have any affiliation to this book or these authors, but I would absolutely recommend Your Baby Week by Week. Really good book, because it gives you a week by week breakdown of what to expect from day one in terms of feeding, in terms of how often they're likely to be sleeping, how many hours a day they're likely to be crying, what's normal, what's not normal, when to call a doctor, when to just accept that it's just something that babies do. So yeah, I'd absolutely recommend it. The only down point on this one for me was when it comes to addressing both parents in writing this book, went absolutely out the window. It is shamelessly directed at mum, even though there's nothing on the front to say that it is just for mums. It is shamelessly devoted only to mums. However, there is a bunch of really good stuff in there, and it was really helpful for us. Definitely something to read before baby arrives. Even if you just get through the first few weeks, it will just give you a little bit of a springboard. Being prepared is always going to be really beneficial in terms of kind of removing any sort of anxiety that might creep in, or that feeling of being overwhelmed. The heat is taken out of that feeling if you already have an idea of what to expect. So this one, definitely check it out. And related to that, in a very similar vein, you're going to get visits from midwives, health visitors, that kind of thing. Talk to them too. In my experience, as knowledgeable and as friendly as they were, they are very sort of mother-centric in what they do, to the point of, you know, a couple of them didn't even give me eye contact, did not even acknowledge that I was in the room. That's the sort of level that I'm talking about. In that situation, it can make you feel a little bit awkward if you then want to kind of contribute to the conversation or ask questions yourself. But I would really, really encourage you to do so, even if that is your experience with your particular midwife. I really do think it's an important thing that dads can be contributing and asking questions too. And I would also recommend, if there are any kind of things that are bothering you, you've got a funny breathing pattern, or there's this weird rash that comes and goes, or something like that, take a photo of it, take a video of it. It can be really helpful in terms of sort of showing the midwife, in case your baby isn't doing it sort of on demand when they come. It can all really help alleviate those kind of anxieties and things. They can really help put your mind at rest. So I hope that gives you an idea of what to expect in the first kind of few days on your own. I hope that it's got some useful tips in there in terms of kind of putting your mind at ease and letting you go about the job in a relaxed way. If that is the case and you found this useful, please do give me a like, drop me a comment, let me know what was helpful. If there's any other tips that you would like to share as well, or perhaps your own personal experience, put that in the comments below. It'd be great to see that. Also, if you know anybody that's embarking on this journey, if you've got friends in your kind of parent groups or anything like that that are about to have kids at the same sort of time as you, do give this a share, send it their way. And of course, there's always going to be more videos coming, so do hit that subscribe button and make sure that you've got the notification bell on so that you can see when new videos are coming up. I will be back with some more Dadvice very, very soon. Thank you so much for staying to the end of the video. I really, really appreciate it, and I will see you soon. Take it easy.